This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, hi, good morning all. So let's get started now. So here, so we are going to work on the loan related things, right? So loan application, okay? And we'll be creating the two different work types, auto loan and home loan. So auto loan will be a one work type and home loan will be another work type, okay? So this will be belongs to the class group. Okay, so that means so we are going to create these classes. Okay, so work type is also a class. So we'll be creating these classes by referring to the class group. Okay, so these classes will be a belongs to class group. Okay, and later, so if we want some functionality for both auto loan and home loan, we'll be creating under work class. Okay, and so if you want some specific things which are related to only auto loan, then we create under auto loan class, and similarly uh, under home loan class. Okay, so now so auto loan is also a one class, right? So how do we create a class? So class is part of sysadmin category, right? So now right click on the work class. Yeah, so put heading create work types. Create work types. So what will be the auto loan class name here? So PNC PNC loans work auto loan. So the label you can specify auto loan, okay, and the class name you need to put like this auto loan. So you cannot just create a class called auto loan, okay. So it should be in the hierarchy. So label you can put auto loan and the class name. So since we are creating from work class, by default it will be displayed and you need to put auto loan. So you should not put the space in between like this. Clear? And it will be a so which is a concrete or abstract?
Concrete.
Yeah, this should be a concrete class because so it is going to generate auto loan work objects. So when we execute auto loan flow later, so it will create that corresponding work item. Okay, so it must be a concrete class and you need to select the initial version. So since we lock 01, so you need to put, okay, you need to put unlocked version. And so this is a belongs to a class group. Okay, it is not a class group. Okay, so we are if you want to make it, you can make it as a class group, but again a dedicated table will be created and these instances will be stored separately, but we don't need. So we have already a class group and we can create this as a belongs to a class group. So when we say it is a belongs to class group, so we need to specify that class group name here. So what is a class group? PNC loan work is a class group. So if we put auto loan and if we save it, it will not work. Okay, so that's it. So pattern, it is based on the name, and directed, so by default it is taking the work class. So either you can put this or replace with worked as covered as. Okay, so worked as covered as a directed, the same like work class. Okay, and so go to the history and you need to update some description about this class. It is a mandate. Okay, and click on save. Right. So now refresh the class group, and we will see one more class, auto loan. Okay, so this is, we call it auto loan work type or auto loan class. Clear? So now if we expand here again, you see the sysadmin, and this is the class name. Okay, so we created a class and we don't have anything right now. Okay, so now similarly, let's create home loan. What is the sysadmin? Class just give me 1 second. Yeah, so what is the label name? Home loan, and the class name will be a home loan. Okay, so create it and select the class type, and you specify the version, and it is a belongs to class group, and you select the class group name here. Okay, and change it worked as covered as. And update the description. So is it clear? So now if you're trying to save by putting the same class, let's say I-fund home loan, even it will not, right? It will not show in the drop down, so it will show only class groups. So now by default it will be a, the corresponding class, and if you are not changing and try to save it, it will throw an error. A class that belongs to a class group must specify a different class. Okay.
Certain class inheritance, we can either provide pattern directed, right?
Backend means? Yeah.
Like in
Inheritance, yes. The pattern, it is based on the name. It is always enabled, and directed. So work class covered as. Even if you can put work class, work class also, because that is in turn inheriting from work class covered as. So that's what, like, a class must be inherited from either work class or its subclasses. So if you put work class and you save it, it will also accept. So you can do that also. Okay. And so the description and usage is a mandatory here. So without a description, if you are trying to update it, yeah, it will throw an error saying that the value cannot be blacked. Okay. So these are the two different work types. Okay. So let's refresh the class group and you see one more class. Okay. So now let's say you go to the bank to take either auto loan or home loan. So the first screen will be a borrower details, right? So we need to provide our details and they will capture into the system. Okay. So here borrower is nothing but the person who is going to take the loan. Okay. So as part of this application, so we are going to build a first screen that is called borrower details. Okay. So then we'll have the loan details. Then we have auto loan details if it is auto loan, and home loan related details if it is home loan, and we'll have the collect loan documents screen, so where you will be able to upload the documents. And so then we'll have the assets and liabilities of the borrower, so where borrower has to provide whatever the assets he has and liabilities. Okay. And so then finally it will go to the approvals, and so based on the loan amount on the all, so it will decide whether it has to go for only manager or loan officer also. Okay, if manager is approved, it will go to the loan officer, otherwise it will be rejected. Okay, so once it goes to loan officer, again loan officer can approve or reject it. So this comes under approval process. Okay, so now as part of the loan application, so we are going to build a first screen that is called borrower details. Okay, so put it in design or implement borrower details screen. So in order to create, in order to work on the screen, so first we need to identify what are the properties we need, right? So here what we do is, so we are not going to create the properties under the work class. Okay, just give me 1 second. Hello. Okay, so just give me 1 second. Yeah, so here, so we don't create the properties under the work class for the borrower. So what we do is, so we create a separate data class to store the properties, and so we use uh, those properties in the section by using the page reference. Okay, so later, like if you want to add more properties to the borrower, so then we go to that particular class and we create properties. Okay, and if you want to take the report for borrower details, we go to that class and we create a report definition. Okay, so if you create everything under so work class, so later so you'll have the different entities, right? You can have so customer, you can have the employee, you can have different kind of entities. So you cannot create borrower underscore first name, customer underscore first name, like that. Okay, so you create a class and you create whatever the properties required for that and use those properties through page reference. Okay, so we create a page property under work class, and for that page we will specify data class so that we can use those properties by referring to the page. Like so let's say we create a page called borrower, and you can use those properties like borrower dot first name, borrower dot last name, like that. Okay, since we have multiple properties, we must need a page to refer those. Okay, so here the data class serves two different purposes. So one is just to create the properties and use in the work class, and to create data also. So like what we created so far, country details, state details, city details. Okay, so we created and we entered the data. Okay, that will be stored in the dedicated database table, and we can fetch the data by using activity methods or report definition. That's what we did, right? So here we create a data class and we create the properties, and we don't need to enter the data. And so data can be entered through user interface. Okay, so still you can use you can create the properties under work class and you can use it, but that is not best practice. So generally we don't create much properties in the work class. Okay, we create separate classes and we use those classes here by using page references or page list also sometimes. Okay, clear? So once we create, you will understand clearly. So let's the first step is, so as part of this scenario, so you note down step by step, create a borrower details data class. So you should be able to do the scenario, by referring to the steps. So if you get stuck somewhere, then you can, refer accordingly. Okay. Yeah. So now, so how do we create a data class? Go to the data type, add data type. Let's say borrower details. Okay, and this will be our class name, data hyphen borrower details. And create the properties related to borrower. Okay, so these are the properties required. So create a borrower details data class with the below properties. Okay, so we need a first name. So here we'll create, step by step, and you note down the first name. Okay, and so it is a text. Next, last name. And let's create a property called DOB, date of birth, and which will be a date, time, or date only. So you can select date only, so that you will have a date control where you can select your date of birth. Okay, and so age. So age will be integer, and so age has to be populated based on the date of birth. Okay, next. Create a property called email. Next, marital status. So marital status will be a, so the control you can change later. Okay, pick list is nothing but drop down. Okay, so you can open the property from here and you can change the control. Okay, next, credit score. So which will be a, so credit score will be integer only. So we have the income, so which will be decimal, so where you will be entering the decimal values. And so we need a property called asset total, and which will be a decimal, and liability total. So this means this is, borrower assets and borrower liabilities. So we need to show uh, the total assets and total liabilities. Okay, so clear. So now take the marital status property and change the control from text input to radio buttons.
That this is newly created, right? You still have to check it out.
Yeah, so whenever you create a property here, it will be checked out automatically. Okay, it will be checked in, so you need to check out. Okay, so yeah, so we are modifying it, right? So let's say I created a property. Okay, and so when you log into the application, and if you want to change this, you must need to check out, right? So by default it will be checked out. Okay, so local list, put the values yes or no, yes and no. So now check in back. So just you can put, so specified local list. That's it. Okay. So now, so we have properties ready. So here we are not going to enter the data. So we created this data class to store the properties. That's it. Okay. So now in order to access multiple properties, we need a page property, because here we have more than one property, right? So we can refer through page. Okay. Page is nothing but the collection of properties. So now create a borrower page property in the work class and specify the data class. Okay, clear? So the second step, note down here, create borrower page property in the work class and specify above created data class, means borrower data class. Clear this step? So now go to the work class, because we'll have the flow in the work class, with the sections and all, and so we need to specify these properties through page reference. Okay, so the page must be available under work class. So how do you create a page? Section is the screen, right? That is user interface tool. Okay, so we create the properties and we put the properties on the section. Okay, so here we are creating a page property, right? So how do we create a property? Normal property, yeah, data model property, the same way. Okay, so create a property called borrower, and here, so by default, it will show like text, right? Property type. So you need to change it from text to single page. Okay, so when you change it to single page, it will ask some class. The page definition is nothing but class name. Okay, and so here we have a page group, page list. These are the different property types we'll be discussing later. So you know about the page list, right? So px results. So while retrieving the country details, the px results generated automatically. So that is page list. If you want to create a page list property, you need to select this option. Okay, that means you should be able to enter the multiple instances, the multiple records on the user interface, or it can hold the multiple records. Clear? The similarly page group also. So here, since we are referring multiple properties, we need a page. Okay, and what is the class we created? Yes, pn-1 borrower details. Okay, save it. Now, so come back to the work class, and if you refresh it, you will see the borrower page. So it is a page property, right? So you see the option expand. So this borrower we created by referring to this class. So that is the reason you are able to see all the properties of this class. So now compare with py work page. So with py work page, the work class. So you know all the work class related properties will be available on py work page, right? So similarly, so whatever the data you entered for borrower, that will be available under borrower page. sorry, that will be available on borrower page. That borrower page will be available under PY work page. So if you expand the PY work page, you will see the borrower. On borrower, you will see all the properties. Okay. Any questions so far? So now property is ready, right? The second step means next step. The next step is create borrower details section and invoke above created properties. The same way, so initially, so we worked on, the simple flow, right? So for that we created properties section, flow action. That is the simple scenario. So, but this will be a part of our loan application, right? So now let's create. So we are going to create this section under work class because this is common for both auto loan and home loan. Clear? So create a section. So in the step, what you can do is invoke, okay, create a borrower detail section in work class. You can put that. Okay. So here I am putting the section name as collect borrower details. Okay. So now we need to put the properties inside the layout. So you cannot just drag onto the surface pane. So you must need to specify inside the layout. Okay. So how can we put the properties? Either you can drag it, and another way is you can take the control and you can call the property. So have we done that through control? Like we just drag it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now, so let's say we'll do in both the ways. If you want to drag the property, so now it is not available in directly work class, right? It is available under borrower. So we are using the borrower property. So take the first name, drag it, and now it is asking the page name. So you need to specify dot borrower like this and enable this radio button. Okay. So now click on OK. Now if you go to the cell properties of this property, you see dot borrower dot first. So if you want to refer the property available in work class, you will put like this, right? But this is related to borrower, so we can call like this, borrower dot first name. Okay. So if you don't want to drag it, so you take the control. So generally we use this way because so sometimes you can have the multiple properties in the class where you created, and so you cannot go all the way and find out the properties and drag it, right? So you can take the control, let's say, can do the drag also, but let's see. I use the text input, okay, control, and calling the property like this, borrower dot last name. So you can put like this also, both are same. Okay. So make it inline grid double. So now use another properties. Let's say first name, last name, DOB. So while you're dragging from second time onwards, so since you already defined the page, it will be displayed. You just need to select the radio button. So you don't need to choose this one. Okay. Then age, just select the radio button and click on OK. Next we need income. credit score, and marital status. Okay, that's it. So if we want, other properties, we can also put later, right? So now, so here we have a property called marital status, and if borrower is married, what happened here? So we need to display the spouse details also. Okay, let me save it first. So if you want to swap, you need to save first. So now I want, okay. So if borrower is married, we'll be selecting, marital status as S, then we need to display the borrower spouse details also. So again, spouse, will have the first name, last name, and other details also, right? So here, so instead of creating again these properties, so we create a spouse as a child to the borrower so that spouse can use all these properties. Okay, again, it's like, parent and child. Okay, so any questions so far? Online, guys? Yeah. So yeah, so we need to create, so we'll have one more layout, that is spouse details, and that layout should be visible if marital status is equivalent to yes. Okay, so then again, you should be able to enter the spouse details like spouse first name, last name, income, etc. Okay, so can we use the same properties for spouse? Let's say, can we use in this way? Again, I will take this first name property and can I put here? No, right? So we cannot use the same property, for multiple places. So let's say you enter some value here, and later if you enter another value, so the old value will be replaced with the new value. Okay, so these are the single value properties, right? First name is a one single value property, last name is one single value property, so it can hold only one value. So at the end, so all the data should be stored in the database, right? Later, if you want to know the spouse of this borrower, it has to be stored in the database in the separate property, right? So we need to have separate property for this. So the first name will be the same, but so we create the different page and we use that property by using spouse page reference. Okay, so borrower dot first name will be different from spouse dot first. Okay, clear? So spouse details will be available under spouse page, borrower details will be available under borrower page on the clip. Okay, so now, so how can we do that? So you understand, right? So we should be able to reuse the properties which we already created. Okay, so now what we do is, so we'll create a data class called spouse details by referring to borrower details. That means the borrower details class will be a parent. Okay, now spouse can utilize all the properties of borrower. Okay, the next step, create spouse data class by referring to borrower. Right, so go to the data type, create spouse So now here we must need to select borrower. So otherwise, so otherwise we cannot use, the spouse cannot use these properties. Again, you will have to create it. Okay. So while creating the borrower, we just can create with borrower. So you don't need to put borrower details, the complete name. Okay. So you create a class, with yeah, borrower only. That is also fine. Right. So here we don't need to create any properties, but if we want some properties which are specific to spouse, then we need to create. Okay, but we'll be using only few properties. Those are all already available in the borrower, so we don't create here in this class. Okay, clear? So now,
But Satya, for spouse, that credit score and all is not
yeah,
required,
can
right?
be, yeah. So we have all the properties in the borrower, right? Even page score, income also. So every property can be utilized. If we want some different properties for the spouse, then yes. Let's say, what is that? But here in this scenario, we don't use, right? Let's say in some cases, the leave type. For females, it will be like, yeah, maternity. So some options will be different, right? So like if you consider in that scenario, so where you'll have to create some different values or properties based on the female, like that. So but here spouse can be a male or female here in this case. Okay, if borrower is a female, then spouse means like the male, right? So we are not specifying the gender here. Okay, but so you understand, right? So if you want different properties for spouse, you just need to create, otherwise it's not required. Simple. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So now let's create a spouse property, means page property, under borrower class. So why we need to create spouse page property means, so again, spouse can have the multiple properties, right? So we are using multiple properties on the UI, like first name, last name, income, etc. So in order to hold those multiple properties, you must need a page property. Okay, so create a next step, create a spouse page property in the borrower class and specify the corresponding data class. Create a spouse page property in the borrower and specify spouse data class as a page definition.
Satya, this spouse page we will be creating in borrower class or work class?
Borrower class. You can also create in the work class, but so we are saying that like so this here the spouse belongs to the borrower, just to say that. Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
you can create separately also. Okay. So here, so spouse belongs to the borrower, right? So we create spouse property under borrower. So go to the borrower data class. So let's say you can also create from here again. So since it's already open, so you can create it. So I will tell you the two ways. So one way is, so this is the wizard of borrower data class, right? You create a property. You create a property called spouse, and here, since it is a page, so we have a option called field group. This is for list. Okay, so field group, and here you can specify spouse data class. You just can select it. Okay, it will be created. So another way is, okay, Either you can create in this way like this, or let's say everything is closed and you don't have the wizard open, and so you can go to the borrower details. Again, you can open the wizard from here, or else you can create, since we are creating a single property, means single page property, you can also create from here. Let's say spouse, and change it to single page, and here also you can call the spouse. Yes. So anything is fine. Okay. Either you create in the wizard and you select the field group and and the class, or else go to the data model, create a property and specify like this. Both are same. Okay. So now let's go to the work class. So we have a borrower under work class. Under borrower we have a spouse, right? So we have a borrower. Under borrower we have a spouse. So if we expand the spouse, we will not have any properties because we haven't created, but still spouse can inherit from borrower. Okay. So we follow the same hierarchy in the real-time application. So that is the reason, so I'm telling this, in this way. So initially it would be little, difficult to understand, but try to understand and practice, so you will understand and it would be easy on the real-time applications. So if we can still create everything under work class and you can directly use it, so it will be easy, but so later you'll have to face a lot of issues. So if you follow in this way, it would be easy to work on the real-time applications. So that's the reason I'm telling this. Okay, right? So now we have a spouse. So how can we call? Yes, borrower dot spouse dot first name. So now see, so we don't have any properties in the spouse class, so but it is showing its parent class. Then this parent is dated as, okay, then this parent is a base class. Now see, all the way inheritance. So you can use any property. Let's say I want to use this property, for example, you can still use it because it is inheritance path. Okay, so now here we are using the first name. So make it inline with double. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, Satya.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yes.
take another text input. Which is last name and use income property. So we are considering spouse income also while calculating, while determining different things. Okay.
Is there a scenario where, like in spouse, we have like the properties from borrower only? Any additional properties?
Yes, that's what. Like if you want a specific properties to the spouse, you can create under that class. Okay, because so those properties are applicable for only spouse, right? So we don't need to create under borrower and use it. We create under spouse and use it. Okay, but here So whatever the properties required already exist in the borrower, so we are inheriting. Okay, right?
Satya, you
So
did
now,
not create last name properly. Can you open last name once?
okay, yeah. So this is wrong, right? Yes. What is that? Last one. So now put layout heading as spouse details. And this is borrower details. So now the spouse details layout should be visible upon marital status selection. So if marital status is yes, then only we need to display spouse details. Okay, so how can we do that is, so we need to put some condition on the layout of the spouse. Okay, so here we have a the rule called when rule, which is it is same as like if statement. Okay, so now the condition we need to put on the layout. Okay, so here we have an option called visibility, and you can make this layout visible through the expression. You can directly put the condition, and you can also call the when rule. Okay, so put heading when, and which is part of decision. So when rules are instances of the class ruled as obj as when. Okay, and it is part of decision category. So conditions can be defined in the when rule. If the condition is satisfied, it returns true, otherwise it returns false, simply. Okay, you can note down that point. Conditions can be defined in the when rule, can define a single condition or multiple conditions. Okay, the condition is satisfied, it will return true, otherwise false. It is same like exactly how if condition works, but here we can put multiple conditions also. Okay, clear? The next step is so this is fine, right? Next, like after creating this, you need to specify the same properties in the section that you do, and create a when rule. The next step, so we'll write down the continuation. Okay, so now how do we create a when rule? So go to the decision, click on when. This is the separate rule. Okay, so is borrower married? The label name. So when we can say that the borrower is married, if marital status is yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to put in double quote, yeah, or without quotes also fine, but since it is a string, you need to put in double quote. In some places it accepts only single quote. Okay, yeah, so if marital status is yes, then only the spouse layout should be visible, right? So now take this when rule and go to the second layout, and so here visibility. So you can also put the condition directly like this, marital status is equivalent to like this, right? So now take the condition when rule and call the is borrower married. Okay, that's it. So create a when rule and specify the spouse layout. Spouse layout means here, okay, in the visibility. Okay. So, but here, so we need to create an action set. So whenever you select the marital status, the section has to be refreshed, and upon the refresh, it will, execute the when rule, and based on that, it will determine whether it has to be displayed or not. Okay. So now go to the marital status property, go to the action, event will be a click. So let's say I selected yes, spouse has to be displayed. When I select no, immediately it has to be disappear, right? So whenever you click on the marital status radio button, the section has to be refreshed. So action should be display refresh. Event is the click, the mouse event is the click, and action is refresh the section. So you need to create this. Okay. The next step. So create an action set for marital status property. Okay. So click on submit and save it. So now go to the actions, click on preview, and so by default, so it's not defaulted to any value, right? So the spouse will not be displayed. So now I'm going to select yes. What happened? I will save this or not? No, 1 second. Go to the spouse details. Let me remove this. So sometimes it will be corrupted. So we need to, sometimes when you log up and log in back, it will work. So let's see now. No, it's not because of double quotes. It should accept. So go to the action set. Hmm? No, this is correct. Okay, let me log off and log in back. Take the section. So whenever you click on the marital status, the whole section will be refreshed, and here we have invoke is borrower married, right? So it should work. Right? So sometimes, so some data might be stored in the cache, and so you need to log off and log in back, so it will work. Okay. So it's not because of double quotes. So you can still put, quotes in the vendor. Okay. So now, so when you click on yes, it's getting displayed. Okay. So that means every time when you click on the marital status, it will refresh, and so when rule will be executed, and based on that, so if it is yes, then only spouse layout will be displayed. Okay. So now we have a section ready. So what we need to do, what is the next step? So create a flow action. The next step, the continuation. So I will write down here. So create a flow action call collect borrower details and invoke the section. Okay, so where we need to create in the work class only. So usually, we put the flow action name as same as section. Okay, so it would be easy to identify also. So it can be different also, but the best practice is to put the same name. Okay, and call collect borrower details. So what is the next step? So we have a flow action ready. So now let's create a flow under each work type. Let's create a flow under auto loan as well as home loan. Okay, so go to the auto loan class, create a flow. What is the flow name? Let's put auto loan. And call the flow action name. Call the flow action, that is collect borrower details. So now go to the process, create a new work object and change to PY, case management default. So similarly, go to the home loan and create a flow, or we can save as this flow into home loan, right? So you can do that also. So now see, if we refresh auto loan, you will see the flow from auto loan. So later, so we'll be configuring in the application, and if you want to execute the auto loan, you will go here and you will execute auto loan. If you want home loan, you will execute home loan, like that. Okay, and we'll have a lot of screens, here. So we'll be adding one by one. Okay, so now yes, you need to create a one more flow in the home loan. Either you can create in the same way, or you can also save as. So if you save as, everything will be copied and you can change the names accordingly. So here we are going to create in the home loan, so you need to change the class, sorry, flow name also, right? Change the flow name to home loan, and this is home loan. Class also we need to change, otherwise it will be created in the same class. And change the assignment label also. That's it. So the section is same, sorry, flow action is same, right? So we don't need to change it. Any confusion? If you have any confusion, we'll create manually. Okay, just save as, change the class name, label name, that's it. Okay, so now go to the home loan and refresh it. So now you see, okay, this is also created. Let me remove it. So we can delete. Okay, so now let me refresh again. So under auto loan, you see the auto loan flow, and home loan, you see the home loan flow. Okay, so now let's configure this implementation classes in the application. So where we define the work class. Okay, go to the case and data and specify both auto loan and home loan. So in the next class, we'll be discussing about work object ID prefix and all. So when we create auto loan, it has to work object ID should start with A dash. If it is home loan, it should be H dash like that. So now we haven't handled that part, right? So now let's say either if we run auto loan or home loan, the prefix will be the same. Since we are executing for the first time, it takes some time. Let's say it is starting with C dash, right? So even if we execute home loan, also it will be C dash only. The prefix will be start with yeah, so C dash, and so let's say 225. So it should not be the case, right? So when we execute auto loan, it should start with A dash, and if it is home loan, it should start with H dash. So by looking at work object ID, we can say that okay, it is belongs to this particular type. Okay, so clear. So this is the runtime. So we executed auto loan, and inside that we executed we called a flow action, and we see that particular section. Okay, and how many assignments we have in this flow? Only one assignment, so one screen. So this will be the runtime, right? So I'm going to enter all the details. This is not editable. Let's okay. So now if we submit, what will happen? So this data will be available on borrower page, and this data will be available on spouse page. So now let's submit it, and so this data will be available on PY work page, obviously, and so on PY work page you will not see that, so because we are not using any properties in the work class. Okay, but so the work object ID and created date, all these details still will be available on this page. Now if we expand the PY work page, you see the borrower and you see the details, right? And if we expand the borrower, because we have a spouse under borrower, so we see that. Okay, so this is the this is the structure in the same way we created in the work class, right? So
Satya, we're not able to hear you, Satya. Is anybody else able to hear?
No.
Yes, they not visible.
No.
Satya messaged in group like it was the system was hanged.
Okay, I think he'll continue tomorrow then.
Yes, we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, thank you all. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.